Dr. Jacob Lauritzen, and this is Read, Write, and Cite, the show where I teach you how to read, write, and cite for your college classes. This is the fourth video in a series on how to write an essay. A little while ago, I was in my high school English class, and I was like, okay, how can I help my students understand everything I want them to know about essays? And I came up with 15 lessons. This is part of that series. This is the fourth video. You can see worksheets that line up with the things I'm talking about in this video if you go to my website, drlauritzen.com, DRLAURITZEN.com. So if you're a teacher and you want to use this in your classroom, great. If you're a student and you want a little more work than what your teachers have already given you, hopefully this is some stuff that can help you out. All right, in this video, we're going to be talking about how to recognize how an author is making an argument. We're going to be talking about rhetoric. Okay, so let's do this. All right, rhetoric is, we get this phrase from ancient Greek philosophers like Aristotle, who spent a lot of time thinking about how to present ideas, how to think through an issue, and how to come to a conclusion. And so I'm going to use a couple terms throughout this video that I want to define from the very beginning. Rhetoric, the way that I'm using it, we're talking about language. Language that is designed to be persuasive, right? Usually we think of it as the product of what a politician says or what a commercial says or the message, the meaning, the language, what's being communicated. Almost always in the context of it being persuasive, okay? So when we're talking about rhetoric, we're not necessarily talking about just facts and figures, but how people present facts and figures in a persuasive way. Yeah? Okay. Rhetoric is an important concept for college students, for anybody in society that's going to spend any time trying to convey an idea to someone else in a persuasive way, or is going to be the recipient, is going to be listening, reading, hearing someone else trying to be persuasive. So if we're talking about commercials on TV, on radio, on YouTube, on whatever the case may be, someone is trying to sell you something, and we need to know, all right, is what they're saying the whole story? Is it what I need to know? And how can I make these decisions? So there's a process that happens before rhetoric. As a reader, as someone who is studying, we have to learn how to reason. We have to learn how to think through an issue, look at both sides. We talked about looking at both sides in my last video. We have to learn how to look at both sides of an issue and then learn how to make a decision that we present to others. It is the presentation of those ideas where this becomes rhetoric. The choices that you make, your references to credibility, emotion, logic, the different ways that you appeal to your readers' sensibilities so that they think, feel, or believe the way that you want them to, or to go do the thing that you want them to when they're done hearing or reading what you have to say. That process was started with reason, is how you come up with your conclusion, and then rhetoric as a process, an argument that you present to other people. So that's kind of this big concept we're talking about. So let me break apart the different ways we can appeal to other people, talk about some of the things you want to watch out for, and some strategies to be successful. So here we go. First thing, let's talk about rhetorical appeals. You can kind of break up how someone presents an argument into three categories for appeals. How they are trying to appeal to your different sensibilities, right? Those categories, which we get from Aristotle, we get ethos, E-T-H-O-S, ethos, which literally translates to character, but that's a confusing definition. Think of it as trust or credibility. Are you, as a speaker, trustworthy? Are you credible? Are you someone that, they can believe? Do you have a history of lying, of changing your mind, of trying to be deceptive? That's going to make it hard for you to have ethos sufficient for them to trust you, okay? Because people are inherently skeptical. especially in a rhetorical situation. They're not going to want to believe everything, right? Hopefully not, if they've formed opinions, right? Okay, so that's ethos. Logos, which literally translates to thought, it's the logic. It's the reason, the actual points that you're making, right? Then we get pathos. People pronounce these different ways. I don't know the right way. This is how I say it. Pathos, you see it in modern words like sympathy, empathy. It's emotion. It's appeal to the person, their personal tastes and interests, right? All these things are important. But sometimes we make mistakes. And that's where we need to understand what a logical fallacy is. A logical fallacy is a mistake in reason. It's an error in logic. It's when someone is presenting information and either their presentation of it is it's off a little bit, it doesn't make sense, it doesn't follow, or they've made a wrong determination and so their reasoning is off, or they're intentionally trying to trick or deceive and misrepresent the information they're giving. All those things are bad, right? Because for one, you're not actually making a good case. You're just assuming your reader is stupid and you can trick them. And that hurts your credibility to them if they can catch it, right? This is why we have so much trouble as a society trusting politicians, because we'll hear them talk and not say anything. We'll hear them speak around an issue and not actually commit to saying something specific. They're using rhetoric, but they're never actually offering substance. And that's frustrating as a reader. And you don't want to do that. Ideally, you don't want to do that. What we want is our ideas to win out, and then use ethos and pathos to help establish trust and an emotional appeal to the logic that we're presenting. Okay? So, some examples of logical fallacies are you find the weakest point of another person's argument and you attack that as if it represents the whole. And it doesn't. We call it a straw man fallacy because you're building up your opponent like they're weak, and just like, a scarecrow without a pole to stand on is going to get knocked over. Same thing, right? Straw man. We also, well, everybody's doing it. We call this the bandwagon appeal. Just because everybody's doing it doesn't make it true, doesn't make it accurate. There's a lot of examples of this mistakes in logic. Just because this happens doesn't mean this other thing way over here is going to happen. We call it slippery slope. There's a lot of different names for all these different things. You don't need to memorize all of them. The important key is you don't want to make a mistake in how you come to a conclusion and determine something that's not accurate, or in how you present information. You don't want to be deceptive in a way that you're not actually presenting a logical argument. You're just trying to work around the actual point to sound like you're saying something when you really aren't. There's a great website for this. It's called Your Logical Fallacy Is. If you search it, it'll pop up. They have a lot of great examples, modern, current examples to help you understand how this kind of pans out. So I totally recommend the site. It's one I use with my students. You should check it out. It's really good. Okay, so we've talked about ethos, logos, pathos. We've talked about logical fallacies. Then the other way that your author's going to be making a point is using rhetorical strategies or devices. These are ways to present information in a logical, credible, and emotional way, right? As they appeal to your different sensibilities. If you search this topic on the internet, you're also going to run into a bunch of things that are really more literary than they are rhetorical. Is the problem that my students have run into as we've been doing this. I see, you might see hyperbole, which is a nice big word, means you kind of exaggerate, which is probably going to verge into a logical fallacy. That is rhetorical. But then on the same list, they're finding onomatopoeia, which is sound words, which aren't necessarily persuasive in and of themselves. So be careful when you're searching rhetorical devices, strategies, you may find some terms that aren't necessarily persuasive. Okay, so be careful with that. But some things I would suggest are the kinds of strategies you've probably learned throughout school to begin with. Looking at both sides of an issue, you're comparing and you're contrasting. That's a logical way to present information. It's a good rhetorical strategy, right? You can look at things chronologically, just in order. This happened, then this happened, then this happened. Cool. Then you can add on top of it cause and effect. Because this happened. And then you can use logic to say, because this and this situation happened, this other thing can happen. And as long as there's a logical, justified connection, that's fine. That's not a logical fallacy. These are all different ways that you can present information in a logical way. Authors do this, readers do this, commercials do this. How people present information is something we could spend lots and lots of videos talking on. I suggest you search some of these things we've talked about, the website on logical fallacies. You can search textbooks, or you can look up Rhetorical Strategies. The textbook I use has chapters on this. The important thing is to understand there are things to consider when you're speaking that are going to matter to your reader. They're going to care about trust. They're going to care about what you're saying. They're going to care about how they feel about it, right? Ethos, logos, pathos. Because of that, as a reader, you need to realize the speaker is aware of this. And if we're going to trust them, we need to know who they are. Can I trust this person? Can I trust the sources they're using? Can I trust what they're saying? Cool. All right. Does what they're saying make sense? Is it logical? Are they simply trying to play on my emotions? Or is everything that they're saying actually making sense? We need to be sensitive to listening to how people make an argument and not just, does it say Democrat or Republican at the end of the name? Is there a sad-looking puppy or a starving child? These are all things we may care about. They may be important to us, but they're about pathos. They're not necessarily about logos. You with me so far? Okay, so these are all important things that you need to be aware of, especially as you start to write essays yourself. Understand how other people make their argument so you can take the best parts and use it yourself and leave out the bad stuff, the fallacies. Okay? I hope this video was helpful. If you found it useful, please subscribe to this channel. You'll be able to see the next video and other videos in the future. If you thought that this and other activities like what I'm talking about would help you or your students, you can check out my website, drlauritzen.com, drlauritzen.com, and you can download them there. They're just there for free. So hopefully this is helpful. I appreciate your time. Again, I'm Dr. Jacob Lauritzen. This has been Read, Write, and Cite. We'll see you in the next video. Bye.